You're listening to episode 129 of the D6 Podcast. Oh, you joined me on that one, Ron. Good job.
I don't know anything more important in our society or in the kingdom of God than to help the church, help the family.
Discipleship is not an event, it's a way of life.
And one day it just hit me that discipleship at home was not about doing more. It was about inviting Christ into what we were already doing.
The goal of family ministry is not families sitting on the couch holding hands and singing Kumbaya. The ultimate goal is families that love God, love people, and make disciples of all peoples.
So that's why you're here. You're here to say 1 hour a week, as significant and as awesome as it is, we know that it's not enough and we want to be intentional with every hour.
You're listening to the D6 Podcast. Here's your hosts, Ron Hunter and Jeremy Lee.
This is the family ministry podcast that helps you connect to the church and home.
We got to have fun once in a while on that. I'm mouthing your words because I just want to pretend to have your voice every time you speak.
You know what, guys? Producers, don't we all agree? It's episode 130. That's significant, right? I'm talking about this is 129, but next episode is 130. I think Ron should do the "You're listening to episode 130." Y'all in for that?
Oh my goodness! I'm gonna
yes. And I'm gonna sit on the other side.
And play the air guitar and have fun with it.
You are outvoted.
Oh, my goodness.
Producers agree.
Okay, next week you're going to hear it.
Okay.
It'll be the only time because we won't let him do that ever again.
Now, this week, we are going to be talking to Miss Elle Campbell. Mm-hmm. Again, I said this last week. Her and her husband, Kenny, just great friends of mine. And in the youth ministry world online, they have just kind of taken it by storm. Yeah. They have one of the best known podcasts for youth ministers out there. They have a really neat curriculum themselves, and they have just a ton of great free resources that they offer to youth ministers. Great couple, and we're going to be talking specifically to Elle today. Excited about that. And you have?
I have Josh Mulvihill. And Josh is going to talk to us about how to identify and counteract the big lies of culture.
I like all of that. All right, so before we move on, though, we have something to talk about today because I want to talk about D6. Next year, we're going to Orlando, Florida for D6 conference.
I'm not sure you're going to show up. I'm going to have to put a chaperone with you.
I'm telling you, I will be at Pirates of the Caribbean going around and around and around.
I was in the Army, and when I was an infantry officer, and when we were out in the field, we had dummy cords.
Yeah.
Dummy cords was parachute cord that you tied to your web belt, and you tied it to your compass, you tied it to your canteen, you tied it to everything that was on your belt. You tied it to your M16. And the goal was so that you couldn't lay it down and walk off and forget it. It always was near you. We're going to put a long dummy cord on you next year so you don't get lost in Disney or any other theme park out there, SeaWorld or...
Ron, I will be doing my job. I will be interviewing Mickey, Minnie,
yes.
Donald, Goofy.
I bet you will.
All right. Hey, listen, no, it is in Orlando, Florida. That's kind of a big deal.
That's right.
September 26th, 27th, 28th. And you guys, to help kind of get people excited about being an early bird,
yep.
We have a special coming up. The first 200 to register will receive a discount. Tell us more about that.
Okay, Jeremy, here's the deal. On October the 30th, if people will stay up that evening till 11:59 p.m. plus 1 minute, at midnight, it's going to open up for the D6 conference earliest, lowest registration of the year, and you're going to be able to sign up yourself and or your group, even if you don't have the names, for the first 200 and get the best deal out there. Those go quickly. They did last year. So if you're not a late night person, there'll probably be some still there the next morning, but you want to get on there, sign up yourself and your group.
So listen, guys, he gave you your special, but Ron, I have an idea for a promotion to get people excited about going to D6 conference in Orlando, Florida.
D just means a whole new word for you now, doesn't it? D6. I can tell.
So I think we should have, you know how when you go to Disney, they have the character breakfast where, there's Winnie the Pooh and Goofy and they go around to your table and take pictures?
That's right.
We need to have a D6 character breakfast.
Oh my goodness.
Like you could sign up and have breakfast and like Richard Ross will come to your table for a picture, and Lee Strobel, and maybe we can have like a sing along with Ron. And have like a character breakfast for each.
That's right.
So here's my thing: the next 200 people to sign up, you're probably gonna just get the discount and no character breakfast.
Probably so, because
No, you don't like that idea?
They don't want me singing.
But I mean, we can get Matt Papa. Who's the singer this year? There's a new singer, right?
There will be.
Who is it?
Have no clue.
Okay, and that person's gonna. Jeez, we're gonna just.
It's too early.
So anyway, I think we should do this, Ron. It's gonna be an incredible. We'll talk about it later.
We'll figure it out, and who knows? We might send these guys in and just mix and mingle. And maybe one of them plays a violin and can roam the dining room.
And look, speaking of characters,
I can put on a big nose and big shoes.
I really hope our guest today listens back to this episode because she is one of the hosts of one of the best podcasts out there for youth ministers. And she's probably listening to this. If I know her, she's listening to this laughing like crazy.
Thinking she can do this 10 times better than we can.
Absolutely. And Elle, you're right. Yep. But hey, after the commercial, we're going to be talking to Elle Campbell. She's going to be talking about how to work with small group leaders to connect with parents, which for almost all of us in a family ministry perspective, this is a huge topic. How can we connect parents and small group leaders? And most of us don't think about this, but it is huge if we can accomplish it, and Elle's going to help us do that. After the break, we'll be talking to Elle Campbell.
Are you looking for the right conference to attend this year? The D6 Conference is a family ministry conference designed for your entire ministry team. Come hear from over 30 speakers and network with churches that share your passion for reaching families. Family ministry isn't just another program. It's one of the most important things your church can do to make a difference in your city. At the D6 Conference, you'll be inspired and equipped to take your family ministry to the next level. To learn more about the D6 Conference, just go to d6conference.com.
Well, my guest today, if you're a youth minister, she probably does not need an introduction, but also I know we have children's ministers that are listening, and you are going to love me after I introduce you to this wonderful human being. Elle Campbell is with us today. Elle is, along with her, quit laughing during your introduction, Elle. They can hear you.
It's just so nice to me. I can't handle
it. She is one of the founders of Grow Curriculum, one of the creators of StuffYouCanUse.org. But let's be honest, Elle, I found you when I randomly came across a blog years ago where you and your husband had created a life-size version of Angry Birds for your youth group. Do you remember that?
Oh, I sure do. That was one of the best things I think we've ever done. We created a slingshot out of a volleyball net, and we created gigantic Angry Birds out of yoga balls that we had glued Nerf footballs to for beaks, and it was hilarious. It was a great time.
And it kind of just in a youth ministry context went a little bit viral, I would say, and kind of started you off with this online influence, and you guys have just kept going. You were a part of a church who made you give away a bunch of free stuff, and that's how you formed StuffYouCanUse.org, correct?
That is totally correct. That was back in 2010, and we just started by giving away stuff that we had created for our church for free, and it was really fun. We were just doing it as kind of a service to the church community. And after only a few months, we realized that people were demanding more resources from us. And we're like, well, we're kind of out of resources. I mean, I guess we could make some. Should we make resources? And that's kind of how Stuff You Can Use got started. So we started making things that people were looking for, things like volunteer handbooks and event guides and blog posts and just things that youth pastors needed for their youth ministries. And now we're doing it full time, which is amazing and still crazy to me. But it's been a blast.
You guys have just released some awesome curriculum called Grow Curriculum. And this is where children's ministers, you need to love me, because they have not only, they've left the safety of that youth ministry world, and they're also entering into the world of kid ministry, aren't you?
That is so true. And we are so excited. So we launched Grow Youth Ministry Curriculum back in 2017. And, I'll give you a little behind the scenes on this, Jeremy. We had no idea what the heck we were doing, but we're like, hey, we think people need this thing, so we're going to make it. We don't know if it's going to work, but we are going to work really hard to make it happen, and hopefully people will like it. And we were thinking, if we could get 250 churches to use this curriculum, we will be able to get groceries this year. So, that'll be our goal. 250 churches. Let's do it. We just passed 2,000 churches using the curriculum, which is
unbelievable.
It's the most bananas thing I've ever heard of in my entire life. I don't know what's happening, but youth pastors love it. And one of the things that we've heard over and over again is, hey, this is great, but please, can I have a kids version of this? Because it's not just curriculum, it's actually an entire strategy for your whole ministry, from discipleship to teaching to programming, parents, volunteers, and your events for the whole year too. So basically it's a whole year of youth ministry and now a whole year of kids ministry in one download, all up front for the year. So yeah, that's Grow Curriculum.
Lots of creativity involved. In fact, you guys are so creative. You put a board game for youth groups on Kickstarter. Tell about that just for a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't know if kids people will be familiar with the game Mafia, because I don't think kids generally play that game. But if you're a youth pastor, you might know the game Mafia. It's kind of like this deduction role-playing game where, some people are in the mafia and they're trying to kill the townspeople. It's a classic youth ministry game that everybody loves. But, we were thinking it's kind of a problem to be playing a game that is about the mafia and murdering people. So we were like, hey, maybe this would be funny if we could put kind of a sarcastic Bible spin on it. And so we did. We tried it. And we made this game. It is called Pharisees, the party game. And in this game, there are Pharisees who are trying to stone the disciples of Jesus. And the disciples are trying to excommunicate the Pharisees from their community before they all get stoned. It is ridiculous. It is stupid. But it's very funny. And hopefully the goal is that your students will learn some maybe more obscure Bible characters, like Elisha, who has the power to call bears to eat one of his opponents at one point during the game. There's just some weird, funny Bible trivia in there. So yeah, it's been good. Youth pastors love it, and you can find it at phariseesgame.com.
I'm going to tell you something. If we haven't piqued y'all's interest yet, I don't even know. Look, man, I told you guys this was an interesting person we're going to be talking to today. But what they may not realize if they haven't followed you enough is that you have a passion for a bunch of things, but one of the biggest ones that you have helped people on, written books about, and done a lot of content on is helping volunteers. And that's what I want to settle in on today, is how can we build a volunteer culture that loves families? And so when we talk about culture, I know you love to tell the story about how at your church you were having trouble with your volunteer culture and you guys did some things to turn it around. Can you share us about that? Because I'm sure somebody out there is got some volunteers that really aren't doing much and they would love to change their culture. So give us some tips.
Yeah. So my husband and I, Kenny, we were leading the middle school ministry at our church. Now, shortly before I joined the middle school team, we kind of had there's a little bit of a staffing change happening. So I wasn't originally on the team, but I did get moved there, which was awesome. But before I moved there, the middle school team was a little low on staff. They had, I think at the time, maybe 300 students coming, which was amazing. But the staff wasn't structured in such a way to really be caring for the volunteers that they needed to sustain that size of a ministry. So, the program was amazing. Kids loved it. They were having fun. It was silly. The teaching was great. The worship was good. But one day we had, I think somewhere around the neighborhood of 85 middle school boys show up, which is amazing. That's a great attendance day. But the problem was we only had 2 male volunteers to lead 85 middle school boys.
That sounds horrible.
Yeah, horrifying, like a recipe for disaster. We were like, okay, this might be the day that the middle schoolers take over the church. Like they could take us all prisoner. This could be bad. So that was a little scary. And, probably like many of us, our knee-jerk reaction was, man, why are our volunteers so terrible? Why won't they just show up when they're supposed to show up? But after a little reflection, we realized, okay, clearly the volunteers are not the problem. We, the staff, are the problem. We are not equipping these people. We are not inspiring these people. We are not doing what we need to do to make sure these people are like pumped up and actually wanting to be here. So that kind of started this whole transformation for us of needing to figure out how to transition our culture from kind of like half on board volunteers to really fully invested volunteers. So I joined the middle school team in, I believe it was like a June or July. So the summer had just started. And we were thinking, okay, we need to get some major changes in place by the time the school year starts, or else we're going to have to endure another year of this craziness. So we put just a few things in place. We're like, hey, let's just try to do a few things that we think could make a really big impact and just focus all of our attention on there. So the first thing we did was we created a volunteer handbook, which is something we had never had before. We put all of our policies, our procedures, our philosophy, our strategy, values, all of that stuff in writing. And then we scheduled coffee with every single volunteer on our team. And we pretty much read the handbook with them and asked them if they had questions. We talked through some stuff, tried to see if they were really bought in, if there's anything we could do. And so at the same time, we were recasting vision, we were going over specific expectations, but we were also building relationships with those volunteers like we hadn't really done that well in the past. So it was a crazy summer. We had to have 65 individual meetings with 65 individual volunteers. But that was kind of the first thing. And it really did make a difference in our relationship with our volunteers and their buy-in for the ministry. So that was huge.
Man, changing culture. Now, okay, let's talk more about, because it's cool to get them excited about ministering to the kids. That's in itself is a challenge. But at D6, we want to take it to a whole nother level, Miss Elle. And what that means is that's good podcast hosting right there, isn't it? That's
yeah.
Okay, so we care about those parents. So how would you suggest that the ministers listening here can kind of add to that volunteer culture this idea of volunteers connecting and getting to know the parents of their kids? And why is that important?
Yeah. So after we did the handbook and all that stuff, this was the next thing that we really felt like we needed to tackle. And it was kind of like just a guess. We're like, hey, maybe if we could figure out a way to nail this partnership between small group leaders and parents, that it will help the ministry as a whole. So we're like, hey, we're going to try it. Hopefully it works. We were not prepared with how well this actually worked. So I'm going to tell you what we did so that you can just steal the ideas if you would like to. So we for years had been really casting vision to our volunteers of, hey, we need you to partner with parents. We need you to think about the family as a whole, not just that one teenager that you see every week. Like, we need you to minister to that family. So that was really huge. We had talked about it for a long time. But as we sat down that summer, we realized that none of our volunteers really knew how to do that. They maybe believed it or were like, hey, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, but they had no idea what they were supposed to do about that. So we thought, okay, that's our bad. Oops. I guess we should have trained you a little bit better. And then it forced us to think, okay, well, I guess in practical steps, what do we want from these people? Like, what do we want our volunteers to practically do? If they've got a small group of, 15, 20 students sometimes, how are they supposed to really partner with all of those families? And the first thing we thought of is, okay, I mean, maybe this is too simple, maybe this is too obvious, but it would probably be good for all of our volunteers to sit down with the parents of the kids in their small groups. Maybe that would be a good place to start so they can meet each other and talk to each other. So we thought they're not going to do that by themselves because that's a big thing to kind of coordinate. So how about we coordinate it for them? Let's, on a Saturday morning, plan a big breakfast, and it'll be a small group leader and parent breakfast. And we will have all of our small group leaders invite the parents of their students to this event. And when they get there, we will just cast vision for maybe like max 5 minutes. But the rest of it will just be kind of for them to have conversations. And we just thought through, like, how do we do that effectively? How do we do that well? We created these placemats that had like 50 conversation starters on them. Anything from like, what's your favorite pizza topping to, hey, why do you want to be a small group leader? Hey, tell me about your kid. Like, what's one thing you wish I knew about your kid that I probably don't know about your kid? Kind of going deeper on some of that. But it was sort of a choose your own adventure type of conversation guide. So we gave them that. And the other thing we did that was a little bit risky, but I think it paid off a lot, was we did not market this event broadly at all to the church. So, and we communicated that to our small group leaders. We're like, we are not going to do a single thing to promote this event, which means if a parent doesn't show up, it's because you did not invite them. So we need you to take that seriously because you are the only hope parents have of getting to this event. So here are your invitations. Now go hand them out and make sure that they get here. And so we did that because we wanted them to take responsibility, but we also did it because we knew that a personal invitation from a small group leader, from somebody who was actually investing in their kid, would mean a lot more than just a mass announcement or something that we stuck into the bulletin. So we tried it, and we had like 95% participation from our small group leaders, which was amazing. And we had, I think like, I think we had like 200 something parents in the room, which was bonkers for something we had never done before. And we set the event for maybe, I think we said 90 minutes. And we were thinking, man, hopefully that's like, not drawing this out too long. Hopefully this isn't terrible and everybody hates us at the end. At the end of 90 minutes, we were literally having to like ask people to leave because they didn't want to go. We had like single moms sitting at this table, like crying with their kid's small group leader because they just didn't realize what this partnership could look like. This was kind of the first time it made sense to them. So it was huge. It was a huge vision casting opportunity, both for the parents of our middle schoolers and also for our volunteers too. And it had a huge, huge effect on our volunteer culture in a big way. So highly recommend it. Go do it, guys. It was amazing.
And Elle, as you were talking, I was listening and multitasking, headed over to stuffyoucanuse.org, and I saw that you have a parent and small group leaders breakfast kit on sale for only $15 that they can grab. That's a pretty good deal. Right.
It's a pretty good deal, guys, and you can grab it. And I would say, too, I don't know how long it's going to be available for because that's kind of the older version. So I would get it while you can, because I don't know if we're going to keep it there or not. If you are a subscriber to Grow Curriculum, it's also inside the curriculum, the newest version of the event. So, you can get it in either place.
Yep, and now that I've brought that to Elle's attention, she's going to pull it down today. So hurry fast.
No, get it, guys. Get it. We want you to have it.
While I'm on here, I'm going to just get curious about some of the stuff on here. What is InstaFeed Live Instagram slideshows? $15.99. That's a great price. What do I get for that?
So there's a little disclaimer on InstaFeed Live. We think it's going to get shut down at some point.
So should I stop talking about things on this page?
No, you can actually. This is actually great. This is a wonderful thing. So here's the thing, guys. I'm going to give you some background information on Instagram. Here's the deal. So InstaFeed Live, what that does, it's a program that makes live Instagram slideshows based on your hashtag. So whatever your ministry hashtag is, your church hashtag, it will pull public pictures from Instagram and make a really cool slideshow that you can like customize, you can design it. And we've had that going since I think like 2011. We used it in our church every week. It was amazing. But here's the sad news is Instagram is getting really, really persnickety about their policies and their API. I think it had something to do with Russia. So the sad thing is, I think they're shutting down all programs like InstaFeed Live at some point, but we don't know when. So I would say use it while you've got it, just like the breakfast.
Okay, so forget about that. I'm going to be courageous and ask one more thing. What is Instalink, and is Instagram going to shut that down?
Instalink, as far as we know, is not getting shut down. Instalink is something I use on my personal profile. I use it on the Stuff You Can Use profile so you can see it in action. But you know how like Instagram doesn't allow you to put links in your captions, which is super annoying. So if you want to post like, from your ministry account, hey, here's this great blog post that I read, but you can't link to it. It's very irritating. So basically what we do is we have a universal link that you put in your profile, and you can tell people, hey, click the link in my profile and enter the code blog, or enter the code, I don't know, my church or something. And whatever code they enter is where it will take them. So you can send people to a lot of different places, watch your traffic to all of your links and all that stuff. So
and
we needed it.
The price on that is amazing because it is free.
$0.
So stuffyoucanuse.org, you can go grab that. That's a cool thing. I will check that out myself. Now, if they do want to follow you on Instagram, how can they do that?
Yeah. So best place is to follow us at Stuff You Can Use. We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter. We are on Facebook. And we have 2 Facebook groups that are kind of like the best place to hang out if you want to be our friends. Our youth ministry group has, I think, almost 14,000 youth pastors in it right now. And it is like the most fun, happiest group ever. I love it. I love everybody in it. It's just the best. We also just recently started a kids ministry group. So if you search for Stuff You Can Use on Facebook, you'll find both of those groups. And yeah, that's the place where all the cool kids hang out. So,
hey, Elle Campbell has been our guest today. Elle, you have been awesome. And that is not a surprise. I knew this would be great. And I hope the folks that are listening may not know about you and Kenny and what you guys do at stuffyoucanuse.org. I hope they'll go over and check it out. Thanks so much for being with us.
Oh my gosh, friend, thanks for having me. And thanks for everything you are doing for parent ministry and for churches. It's awesome. And we just love what you are doing and love collaborating with you on stuff. So let's do it again.
We've all been there. Your buddy sent you this can't-miss icebreaker idea. It even involves a tiny bit of pyrotechnics, he said. It sounded great, but the next day, as you stare at the empty places your eyebrows used to be, you think, hey, there has to be a better way to get their attention that doesn't involve so many fire trucks. Is this you? If it is, I'm John Forrest, and I'm here to help. I've written Help, My Games Stink. It's 52 engaging ideas that will get the students' attention without burning the church down. Check it out at the store at d6family.com.
Okay, Elle, I hope you forgive us for this episode, but man, what an interview between you and Jeremy. And now you can, just say, hey, here's the podcast not to model after. I don't know. But
no,
yeah.
Elle, I know Elle well enough to know she appreciates awkwardness and fun. Thank you, Elle, for being a part. Seriously,
Yes.
It means a lot. And her and her husband, Kenny, are amazing. Please go check out what they're doing. They're doing some cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, my man Josh, and I'm going to do it. Josh Mulvihill. Did I do it?
You did,
Josh
yes.
Mulvihill is up next. Hey, let's listen to y'all's conversation. Cool topic, like you said, not one of his normal topics. He usually talks about grandparenting, but he's about to lay out some new stuff. So
That's right.
Let's listen to Josh.
I want to welcome Josh Mulvihill, no stranger to D6 World, nor the D6 podcast. I want to say welcome back to him. He is in a new role. He has transitioned from church staff into the parachurch world, and he is now working for Renew Nation. And this organization is dedicated to helping specific ministries understand a biblical worldview and really shape people around the gospel. And Josh has been hired in as the executive director of church and family ministry. And it's an incredible role, and we'll talk more about that at the end of the podcast. But many people know Josh for his major impact of research in the area of grandparenting, but his role with Renew Nation now works with not only grandparents, but with parents and helping them understand the impact that their worldview has on their kids. And that's the topic we want to talk about today. And so, Josh, you talk not only as a person who is I would say, a seasoned, incredibly capable consultant, but you're a dad. You've got 5 kids. You've been married 18 years. You're an expert here that you can bring to the table. So I want you to hit this question for us. What are the unintended mistakes parents make in passing along shaping influencers to their kids, this worldview concept? So let's first define worldview and then talk about what are the mistakes the parents are unintentionally making, and then we'll talk towards the end of this interview about how to correct it.
Yeah. First of all, I want to mention worldview. I think some people hear that and think that's academic, doesn't apply. And I've been one of those where my eyes go crossed, and I think not for me. But all that worldview means is shaping beliefs. And of course, as Christians and pastors and ministry leaders, we want to see that shaped by the gospel and by scripture. And the challenge for us is when we think about the family arena with parents and grandparents, there's a lot of different shaping influences that are hitting our kids. And sometimes we are unaware of what those are and the depth and pervasiveness of their influence in the lives of kids. And so we just want to help parents and grandparents shape our kids into the aroma and likeness of Christ for service to him and his kingdom. Some of those unknown impacts or unaware impacts that I've seen, I think one of the biggest ones, obviously we have the cultural impact, but the vehicles that comes through, I think the biggest I'm seeing I was a pastor for almost 20 years, is in the world of education. And we're starting to see some of that more and more prevalently. But kids spend about 14,000 hours or so in the educational arena between kindergarten and 12th grade. And it's extremely impactful. We used to talk about how to help kids stay Christian in college. And now I think we are talking about how to help kids stay Christian in kindergarten, because it's because of age compression, things have just gotten younger and earlier, and they're coming in from every facet. So that's a biggie that parents, it's a tender topic for a lot of families and a lot of churches, because oftentimes we get into what are the education wars and your choice isn't the right choice kind of conversations, which that's not what I'm primarily interested in raising today. As a pastor, my goal was to help families in whatever educational form, public, private, homeschool, to recognize their role as parents and to bring even grandparents in and to shape their children with scripture. And of course, then in the educational arena, that has become more and more difficult.
So let's talk about that. When a parent hears their child coming home talking about something that they know is off topic from school, give us a real life example of one of those options where a child comes home going, hey, our teacher said this, or we discussed that. What are some of the common ones? And then what should the parent do as soon as that conversation begins to occur, whether it's in the ride home, around the dinner table? Let's hit that.
So Hammurabi's Code was introduced to children, and it was used as a really obvious example. And it was the big push was that the Old Testament laws plagiarized Hammurabi's Code. So the how-to for a parent there was to go back and to reteach. In this case, she retaught the covenant of God and the fact that God's laws do things that Hammurabi's Code never could, that it reveals sin, that it points us to Christ, and all that Hammurabi's Code does simply is place some moralistic standards, but doesn't actually have any opportunity to do anything about the problems that it addresses. And so in this how-to, the mom just simply drove back to scripture and helped ground her kids in what was true and right. So she, in that case, for her, she had to do a little bit of digging on her own, a little bit of work to recognize what's the biblical truth that this is trying to undermine, that my children are hearing, and I'm going to reinforce that at home. And so whether that's secularism or socialism, this case Hammurabi's Code, those I think are the things that end up sneaking in with our kids, that sometimes if we don't catch, they plant seeds and then they end up sprouting bigger. So I think the how-to is as simple as this: identify the lie and counteract with the biblical truth.
Josh, tell me this. What are the hidden messages that parents are just overlooking that you think they need to be paying attention to?
Yeah, so some of the buzzwords and phrases, things like global community and environmentalism, sometimes, not always, but there's sometimes buzzwords for things like cultural Marxism, kind of the idea of being one big community. I mentioned socialism, that places America and wealth in a negative connotations, like it's not fair and we don't. They have more than we do. Those kinds of things. Anytime we get into the arena of one big world, global community, those are big deals. Let's see, New Age mentality is all over the place. These often come through cultic books and mystical books. So yoga, mindfulness, they come through if you have things like silent nature walks. Sometimes kids are put into positions where they're asked to listen to some kind of chanting sound bites while doodling on paper. That's the kind of mindfulness stuff that's pretty common.
Gotcha.
It's often talked about as studying the brain, but it's really New Ageism that's pushed in there.
Yeah.
Many times children will be put in, separated or put in a corner or whatever, and there will be a mindfulness app that will help them breathe and those types of things. Of course, sex education is really big, but this isn't a lot of times written into the actual curriculum. It's coming through literature sources. So in libraries, in media centers where kids go in and check out books, parents have to pre-vet the books that their kids are checking out. And one of the things I encourage is don't even let your kids check out books from the library and the media center, because there's so much that is in that arena, especially on the sexual, homosexuality, transgender side of things. It is coming through there a lot. So for example, the parent just said to me, my kindergartner read a book about a red crayon that wants to be blue, and this came through the literature library system. And of course, we recognize that pretty quickly, but a kindergartner necessarily won't, and it's implanting those ideas. One of the other big pieces that's happening is data mining, and it's being placed on Google Drive, and it's separating kids' values from their parents' values. I could keep going and going, but those are the kinds of examples that I think they get pretty specific, that families can say, okay, I at least can start to recognize some of that. For those families that are interested in more, Ron, I've seen this as such a critical issue for so many kids and so many families. We're going to be putting out a magazine that is specifically devoted to the messages. I call them the hidden messages in curriculum.
Yeah.
That parents and grandparents need to realize. And it's just going to be a short article for each major subject area that will help do what you're trying to get at in this podcast. And it's free. So anybody, that's supposed to come out this fall at some point. So anybody can just grab that. And it will be super helpful for families to identify and then to be teaching these truths at home for the whole outcome of we want our kids to love Jesus. And this will hopefully help towards that end.
Josh, I think you and I would both agree the one takeaway that we can have from this is for parents to be very involved in their kids. Don't just be provision parents where they provide the paycheck, the food, the shelter, the clothing. When kids come home with their books, read them. We would encourage them, if they're coming home with library books, read with them. Look at their lessons together. Ask them questions, and that gives them a chance to look for those hidden messages that you're talking about. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that's correct.
Good deal. Well, thanks for putting this on our radar and helping us understand that, because I do think parents are so, I don't think they're negligent. They're just not as attentive to these areas as what we probably should be. And it just needs to be something that we are more intentional about looking into. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that, Josh?
I totally agree. I think as families, it's helpful for us to have our radars up. And this is one that, due to the significant amount of time our kids spend, there's nobody else having that much communication with our kids other than ourselves. And so it's one that we have to be paying attention to. So hopefully this helps towards that end.
Right. Well, very good. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for being on the podcast. I so appreciate it. Hope you have a good rest of the day.
Yep, thanks.
Good deal. I think we see those hidden influences, those unintended impacts from education, from culture, from all of those worldview beliefs that are being shaped in that. And, all we got to do is be aware. And then we can engage those conversations, and Josh certainly laid out the how-to for us on that. Thank you, Josh, for your insight.
So, hey, next week we've got a great show.
Yes, we do.
And here's why. And I'm going to talk about my interview first, because I've got an incredibly curious tease for you guys, because let me just say this. Philip Robinson, our guest, and I'm going to just go ahead and bet that hardly any of you have ever heard of this man, but I'm going to talk to you and introduce to you his story of how he developed a relationship, a friendship with his father's murderer. Now, if that doesn't get you interested in next week, I don't know why. It's a powerful story. I can't wait for y'all to meet my friend Philip. He's an amazing man.
This is the book you shared with me several weeks back, or 2 or 3 months back. Yeah.
Yes.
People
incredible.
need to tune in for this.
Oh, it's going to be so good. And then you have...
I have TC. He is an absolute genius when it comes to the youth, the culture, what's going on there. And he has his own podcast. And I asked him, I said, when we talk... I know you could talk about a million things, but what's the most frequently asked questions that you get as a leader in youth workers? And that's what we're talking about. It's the most frequently asked questions he gets.
Awesome. Hey, listen, thank you guys so much for being with us. We do have a great show next week. Hope you have a great week of ministry. We'll talk to you then.